Part 352. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 3523. But if you want to talk about the fastest extra money, it is to go to sea with a caravan. Bring some goods with you, once you go out and in, as long as you find a way to sell it, you will definitely make money. And Jojo Lang is in this business, and Uncle Shi manages the account for him, so naturally there is no shortage of connections. It's just that he rarely has the opportunity to go out. One is that he only has an old wife and a sick son in his family, so he dare not take too much risk to go to sea. The other is that Jojo Lang pays a lot of wages, and he has to take charge of the accounts here, so naturally he can't go to sea with him. Joe Man asked, "Uncle Shi left with us, what about your account?" "Leave it to his son," Jojo Lang said. "His son is even more powerful than him. Apart from not being very talkative, he is no worse than Uncle Shi in any way, but..." Jojo Lang looked puzzled. "I don't know why, but Shi Xiao Lang doesn't like to talk, but he is more popular with merchants. The business he negotiates in person is a one-on-one negotiation, which is more effective than his father." Jojo Lang glanced at Bai Shan, but he didn't say a word. His face was clear and cold, just like Bai Shan these years. Humph, if he hadn't underestimated them growing up and knew that Bai Shan was a crybaby who couldn't beat his sister, I'm afraid he would be fooled by him like this. Bai Shan acted as if he didn't see Jojo Lang's gaze, and directly decided, "Then it's settled, we'll go to Silla to have a look when we choose a date." Jojo Lang didn't want them to go too far out to sea, but Bai Shan and the others had their own plans. He and the four of them said privately, "Let's go to Silla first, from near to far. Fourth brother doesn't want us to go far, but we will go to Silla by ourselves once he has figured out the sea route and knows all about the merchant ships going out to sea. He will not be able to stop us." "Joe Man, you are treacherous." Bai Erlang nodded, "Too treacherous." "Bai Shan, it's as if you don't benefit from it." He looked at Yin Ru and Mingda, and frowned, "It's just your bodies." Yin or indifferently, "Do you think I still have health problems during the 2 years of traveling?" Mingda also said, "There is Man Bao here." Joe Man also whispered, "The two of them are in good health now. People can't stand still just because of unforeseen illnesses." Bai Shan nodded, and felt relieved when he saw that they all had a clear idea. "Then it's settled, we'll go to Silla first." Since Dajin established the Andong Protectorate, the Qingzhou area and Silla Baikya have become much closer. After the completion of Longqi Wharf, there were merchant ships traveling between the three places every season. In the past few years, Dajin's commerce and trade have developed, and Longqi Wharf has merchant ships going to Silla and Baikya every month. There are merchant ships that specialize in hauling goods, and merchant ships that only do passenger business, and some that do both. The merchant ship that Jojo Lang found for them is a large merchant ship that does both types of business, and the best cabins are specially reserved for them. Jojo Lang did not tell the host family their identities, but only said that they were relatives of the family, and they wanted to play in Silla because they were curious. The Jin army is strong, the sea trade is developed, and Silla is not far away. In recent years, there are many nobles who are full and have nothing to do. The merchants are used to it, so they don't think it is strange. Anyway, they only need to pay the boat fare, and Jojo Lang's relatives. After looking at the demeanor of Bai Shan and the others, no one dared to neglect them. There are basically two types of Joe Lang's relatives. One is from Kilai village like him, which is easy to see, and the other is related to Mr. Joe in his family, who are either rich or noble. The sea merchants received Joe Man and the others very politely, and they were even more polite after seeing Uncle Shi personally accompanying them. Joe Man and the others were not polite, and carried a lot of goods onto the ship with Uncle Shi. They decided to uphold the principle of diligence and frugality along the way, and try to earn as much as possible on the way. After leaving the boat in the evening, it was dark within 2 hours of walking, and the surrounding area was pitch black, and they could not see anything. Joe Man and the others returned to their cabins, planning what to do after they arrived in Silla. It's true that they didn't have any plans at all. They were supposed to go to Tianfang, and going to Silla was a temporary decision, so they haven't decided where to go. Joe Man secretly suggested, "We can go to Baikya for a while, Keek must like it." Yin he, the relationship between Silla and Baikya has not been good for the past 2 years. If we go from Silla to Baikya, I'm afraid it will not be easy to get a pass. Bai Shan, it's okay, we don't need to go by land, we can go by sea and take our Dajin ship. Silla dare not stop us. Silla and Baikya are both vassal states of Dajin, but Silla and Dajin are better, and they are more polite, and they dare not stop Dajin people from communicating with Baikya. The steward on the other side of the merchant ship was reporting to the owner, "I went back to the cabin after nightfall. I didn't have the usual habits of those noble people, and I didn't make any noise. It was unexpectedly courteous." The boss said, "After all, it was the person introduced by Thursday, and there were no problems with his introduction before. Boss, I think Uncle Shi who followed is very respectful to them. It's a relative of his boss's family, can you be disrespectful? Small doesn't mean that." The steward thought for a while and said, "It's not like I haven't seen Jojo's relatives before. Uncle Shi is very ordinary to them. You should have heard of it. Uncle Shi used to have a wealthy family. And has a bit of a temper, but he won't be so respectful to everyone. Besides, I think that Mrs. Bai looks a bit like Master Joe in her eyebrows and eyes. Where does it look like? It's dark on Thursday." The boss paused here, trying to recall. "Don't tell me, Thursday is not like it now, but when I first met him a few years ago, he was not as good as he is now. Hey, with handsome eyebrows." The owner murmured, "Bai, could it be?" He widened his eyes slightly, and quickly asked, "Have you seen what happened to them?" "It's confirmed that it's a matter of the Haisai Yamen. Everyone has been let in, and they are distinguished guests. How can we investigate their pasts?" Bai Shan and the others used connections to deal with them. If they were in other places, they might not be able to use connections, but in Qingzhou, it is very convenient. Even though Haisai Yamen was terrified about Princess Mingda's incident, they turned a blind eye to it. So when the emperor knew that they had all gone to Silla, it was half a month later, and it was still because of the letters from Mingda, Zhou Man, and others. The emperor. When the emperor doesn't exist, right? It's okay to go to the Liazi department, and it's okay to encounter malaria once in a while. Let him go back to the capital and turn around to Yangzhou. This is not in the territory of Dajin anymore. Although Silla is a vassal state of the Jin dynasty, even if he had 10 guts, he would not dare to disrespect Mingda, the princess of the Jin dynasty, but it is still a foreign country. What if Silla goes to war? People know to hide from these nobles, but do swords also know? The emperor pressed the letter with a snap, and asked the Hanlin who was waiting by his side today, "Is there any news from Silla recently at Honglu Temple?" Hanlin said without even thinking about it, "Only 2 months ago, the Queen of Silla made another offer, hoping to invite Dajin to send troops to Baikya and Wa to calm the sea area so as to protect the trade between the two countries. They didn't fight on land, did they?" After thinking for a while, Hanlin said, "Neither Honglu Temple nor the Ministry of War has been published in the newspaper." Only then did the emperor feel a little relieved. See you tomorrow. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 3524. The emperor didn't know that Zhou Man and the others were visiting flower houses in Silla at this time. Whether it is people, clothing, or architecture, Silla is very different from Dajin, but when they arrived in Jinjinj, they saw the shadow of Dajin. Many people here imitate Jin people's clothes and also speak Chinese, so Bai Shan and the others are not very awkward here. But as long as they go to the streets, they can still be seen as Jin people. It is said that the new queen of Silla ordered the people to learn the clothes and language of Jin people after she ascended the throne. She had studied in Dajin and hoped that the relationship between Silla and Dajin could go further. As the former left chancellor of Dajin, Bai Shan knew more, and said to several people, in the past, Goguryeo suppressed Baekje and Silla in the north, blocking the communication between the two countries and Dajin. The late emperor was disrespectful and repeatedly sent soldiers and horses to invade the border, so the late emperor established Jianan Prefecture, Liaocheng Prefecture Dudufu and Andong Duhufu. Unexpectedly, the border has been stable for a few years. Baekje relied on its proximity to the Jin dynasty and repeatedly lay across the border. Between Silla and Dajin, Silla's pilgrimage was blocked, so the Queen of Silla wrote many times to ask the imperial court to send troops to attack Baekje. After Bai Shan spoke for such a long time, his voice changed, but these are all appearances. Zhou Man and the others, what about the truth? The truth is that one mountain cannot accommodate two tigers. Silla has always wanted to swallow Baekje, and Baekje has always wanted to swallow Silla. You hit me this year, and I will hit you next year, Bai Shan said. It's nothing, His Majesty told us early on, this is the internal affairs of the two countries, Dajin will not interfere. Silla is a vassal state of Dajin, and so is Baekje. It is equivalent to two godsons fighting on their own. It is not good for a foster father to help anyone, so they just turn a blind eye and close their eyes as if they don't see it. The fight is fierce for the sake of the people of the two countries, they should be a peacemaker to persuade them. Whether they can persuade them depends entirely on themselves. However, Baekje has been rampant these years, which made His Majesty displeased. Bai Shandao said, Dajin sea trade was developed. When the sea trade first opened, Baekje and Wa Kingdom snatched our merchant ships from Dajin. The Eastern Capital Protectorate cleared them up. They have been stable for a few years, but they became dishonest a few years ago, so His Majesty is very unhappy. When two godsons fight, it's hard to tell who is wrong and who is right. The emperor doesn't care, but the godson turns around and grabs his own son's things, cutting off the other godson's way to pay tribute to the old father. That's very annoying. Your Majesty's temper has improved a lot in the past few years, but I think Baekje's temper will not be able to be suppressed in the long run. The implication is that the emperor is likely to agree to the proposal of the Queen of Silla and send troops to pacify Baekje together. Zhou Man, then shall we still go to Baekje? Go for a walk on the way back, Bai Shan said with a smile. They haven't fought yet, and there are quite a few merchant ships between Dajin and Baekje, so we'll be fine when we go. Yinji laughed and said, since you want to go to the flower houses in the Wa Kingdom, you might as well visit all the flower houses in the three kingdoms, and see the differences. Zhou Man and the others went there excitedly, and finally came back disappointed. There was not much difference, they were all dancing and singing. The difference was that storytelling was added to the flower building in the three kingdoms, but they talked the most. It was about Dajin, and I used the book written by Bai Erlang as a reference, which didn't feel fresh at all. How many times did they listen to Bai Erlang's book in restaurants and tea houses along the way? Bai Erlang was very happy, and said excitedly along the way, I didn't expect that I have so many book fans overseas. Bai Shan and Zhou Menyan nodded, I didn't expect that. Mingda urged Bai Erlang, will you write more? Bai Erlang rolled his eyes, why don't I write down the places we have traveled? Bai Shan and the others had no objection, you can write as much as you want, just a little, and don't slander us. Bai Erlang muttered, when did I slander you? Zhou Man was dissatisfied first, is that too little? Why did you specifically write that she was a dwarf when you were ordered to write about Taibei jinxing? Bai Erlang glanced at Zhou Man up and down, his meaning was self-evident. Zhou Man's feet were a little itchy, she tried hard to control herself in her heart, now that she has grown up, she is a well-mannered old man, she can't move her feet, she can't move her feet. Taking advantage of the convenience of Zhou Man traveling around the vassal states, KK gained a lot. Although it was difficult to visit all of Silla and Baikya, they passed through all the main places. If it weren't for the inconvenience caused by revealing his identity, Zhou Man wanted to spend money to ask the locals to dig some rare flowers and plants and send them over. It would definitely be more convenient to work together. But she finally decided to do so, especially when she found out that Bai Shan was painting the hills and towns they passed by. It is not easy to make a map, especially this kind of detailed map. Among them, only Bai Shan and Yin may be able to draw it, and Zhou Man and the others will help from the side and give some references to their data. By the time they went to Japan for a stroll, and returned to Dajin, it was already the summer of the second year. Zhou Lang was eager to see through, and when he saw them, he couldn't help but rushed forward and held Zhou Man's hand and cried, "You can really go shopping. Do you know that I dare not go home this year, because I am afraid that I will be punished when I go home? Brother and sister-in-law beat me up. Why don't you know how to think about my poor fourth brother?" Zhou Liwei stood aside with a smile, and said to Zhou Man, "Sister-in-law, uncle and auntie call elder brother to write to scold fourth uncle every now and then, saying that we shouldn't find a boat for you to go out to sea, it's so dangerous outside." Zhou Man turned around in front of them and said, "Do you think I'm in danger?" Bai Erlang said, "We've had a good year outside, brother Zhou, don't worry. You guys are doing well, but we are not doing so well." Zhou Lang looked at Bai Erlang after crying, "My son-in-law, the person His Majesty sent to pick up the princess has been waiting at the Longqi wharf." The five looked at each other and went to meet people together. It has been more than 3 years since they left Beijing, and they are finally preparing to return to Beijing under the expectation of the emperor. Zhou Lang stayed in Qingzhou this year, and now he received the right master, so he went back with them. Zhou Liwei's career has always been in Qingzhou. Because he was not born in the imperial examination, his official rank is limited, and he has been limited to the 6th rank. Qingzhou is the best development. After all, the largest salt farm in Dajin is now in Qingzhou. Over the years, he occasionally went back to Beijing to visit relatives, and occasionally brought his parents over to take care of him. It's a pity that Zhou Lang prefers Qilai village compared to Qingzhou and Beijing, so he came here to see his son, and after living there for a year or so, he will go home, and he is not happy to live abroad for a long time. Old Zhou was able to think about it, so he simply let Zhou Liwei stand alone here. Anyway, the old Zhou's family had already separated, and no matter where it was, this was also his grandson, wasn't it his blood? He's quite proud to say it, he just needs to think about it. Hundreds of years later, relatives from Qingzhou will find them, and in terms of relatives, they all come from his old ancestor. How proud they are. Of course, he only talked about this kind of small thought in front of his old wife and young daughter, and he would never tell others. So Zhou Man, who knew what the old Zhou was thinking, patted Zhou Liwei on the shoulder with satisfaction after seeing Zhou Liwei's children and grandchildren. "Well done, teach the children well, don't let them humiliate our old Zhou family." Zhou Liwei, who didn't understand Zhou Man's meaning at all, thought he did, and nodded fiercely, "Don't worry, sister, I will teach them well. Don't think they are not good at reading, but their character is fine, and it will never be bad, the reputation of our old Zhou family." Although I didn't get it right, Zhou Man was also very satisfied with this answer. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 3525. This time when he returned to Beijing, Bai Shan presented the map he drew to the emperor, and the emperor stared at the map in his hand in silence, especially when he saw the places where the triangle symbols were drawn. He was even more silent. Bai Shandao, although it's not very accurate, but there are 7 points. If there is no accident, these places should be silver mines. The emperor pointed to the other two symbols and asked, "Where are these two?" Bai Shan took a look and said, "It's copper ore and iron ore." The emperor's heart was ready to move. He looked at Bai Shan. "When did Ai Ching study minerals?" Bai Shandao, "After digging a lot of flowers, plants, and grasses, you can roughly know the changes in soil quality, and then you can figure out the differences in rocks and minerals." The farmers who farm the land that day can look for mines. In fact, Bai Shan read more and more books after he retired, and Zhou Man had another channel to get books. Occasionally, he took out a book, which contained texts describing gold mines, and even various methods of smelting gold mines. As soon as Bai Shan was curious, he looked for gold mines from the description in the book. Gold, who doesn't like it? The couple once fantasized that they would find a large gold mine in the wild, especially the exposed gold mine with a particularly high gold content, and then carry the gold mine home and refine the gold by themselves. Unfortunately, they didn't find gold mines in the end, but Bai Shan read more and more books, and finally found a lot of silver mines and copper mines. Gold and silver are scarce in the Jin dynasty, especially silver, which is very scarce. This has led to the fact that merchants basically use copper coins for transactions, but copper coins are heavy and difficult to carry, and their purchasing power outside is far inferior to silk, satin, and brocade. Vulnerable. If you accidentally get wet, the value will be greatly reduced. So the most stable currency in the world is gold and silver. In recent years, due to the rapid development of Dajin commerce and trade, the mining of gold and silver has also improved a lot, but the domestic supply of gold and silver is still far from meeting the demand, which makes gold and silver more expensive. In the long run, this is not a good thing. If you can find a lot of silver mines, even if they are overseas, it is worth a try. The emperor pondered. "I remember that the Queen of Silla wrote a letter last year asking me to send troops to conquer Baikya and Wa Kingdom." Bai Shan didn't say a word. This year he stayed away from the government and did not know the situation in the court. Hanlin, who was walking in front of the emperor, immediately said, "Your Majesty, this spring Japan will offer tribute, and request to restore the old relationship with us, and please give us the name Japan." "So have you forgotten? We don't have an excuse to call now. The state affairs are busy. How can the emperor remember such trivial matters?" But as soon as Hanlin mentioned it, he remembered it, and he felt a little regretful at the time. He answered the watch too quickly at that time, and if he regrets it now, he might lose his style of a great country. The emperor sighed, glanced regretfully at the location of Wa on the map, and fixed his eyes on Baikya. "Is Baikya still preventing Silla from coming to court?" Hanlin bowed and replied, "Yes, Baikya and Silla have confronted each other from time to time. In order to prevent Silla and our dynasty from asking for help, Baikya would sometimes stop our dynasty's merchant ships. Governor Guo warned Baikya many times for this." The emperor nodded, pointed at Baikya and said, "Let Qingzhou and Andong Protectorate contact Silla. If Baikya doesn't repent, then help Silla take Baikya back." How dare Hanlin respond? As Hanlin, they can participate in politics and give suggestions, but most of them act as consultants, and the three provinces have to discuss together to decide. Sure enough, Bai Shan reminded, "Your Majesty, why don't you invite your lords to discuss it?" And his gaze was fixed on the map of the country of Wa. The Japanese seek profit. When traveling in the country of Wa, the minister once revealed that he liked the scenery of the country of Wa. He wanted to buy some land there for the elderly, and he could also make it into an industry to attract guests. The generals of the Wa kingdom were very happy and rushed to give the land away. The emperor raised his eyebrows and asked, "Ai Ching took it?" Bai Shan shook his head. "I don't intend to go to the Wa country often, so I temporarily refused, but if your Majesty is interested, I can recommend one or two for your Majesty." Of course not in their real identities, otherwise, even if WA Kingdom didn't know their purpose, they would know that their purpose was impure. Bai Shan and the others didn't use their real identities for this trip abroad. The emperor looked at the map and various signs in his hand, and finally stopped holding on to the fact that they took the princess out of the country privately. Instead, he looked at Bai Shan and asked, "Why don't you come back and help me, love?" Bai Shan immediately became sad. "Your Majesty, I have been traveling for 3 years, my body is not as good as before, and in recent years, I am easygoing and relaxed. I am afraid it will be difficult for me to discipline myself as usual. Your Majesty's kindness is profound, and in recent years, many talents have been acquired, all of which are above the minister. Anyway, just one central idea, he doesn't want to come back to work anymore." The moment the emperor brought it up, he was very moved. In the past few years, the relationship between the monarch and his ministers has eased. He remembered the time when the monarch and his ministers got along with each other. But after he proposed it, he regretted it a little bit, so after Bai Shan refused, he was both regretful and fortunate. The emperor himself never thought that he would be able to realize such complicated emotions one day. In the center of the court, there is a radish squatting in a pit. If he returns to the court, which radish will make a pit for him? Isn't that harmful? He has already been a prime minister, and he is still a prime minister for a long time. His ambition has been paid, so why come out to attract people's hatred? Moreover, his 2 children are now in official positions, and he, as a father, still runs out. Isn't that a hindrance to them? His father is not a tiger, so he wouldn't do such a thing that hurts others, hurts himself, and hurts himself. So after talking with the emperor and presenting the gift, he went home to thank the guests behind closed doors to recuperate. To release the news to the people outside, he just came back from overseas, exhausted by travel, not acclimatized, and fell ill. Those in the court who heard that the emperor wanted him to be an official were tense and then relaxed. They probably guessed that Bai Shan would not be an official again, so they were relieved to see that the emperor gave a lot of good things to the princess's mansion. Anxious, Zhou Manren sat at home, and the gift fell from the sky, and it was a joy to receive it. She sent the medical books and herbal books that she had compiled in the past few years to the Imperial Medical Office. After checking the transcripts, send a copy to the Chongquen Museum and the bookstore, and remember to return the original manuscripts when they are published. Imperial physician Zheng recognized that it was Zhou Man's handwriting, and replied with a sigh, "Master Zhou, I'm afraid that all the doctors in the world will come from your sect in the future. As far as this unselfish skill and output, who among the doctors in the world can compare to her?" Zhou Man urged him, "Of course the Zheng family can do it too. I heard that the Zheng family has your own medical records and prescriptions." Imperial physician Zheng, he knew that she was still thinking about the things in his house. Dr. Zheng said, "No, you have spent almost all of your money over the years, and the rest are some secret recipes of patented medicines, which are life-saving things for our Zheng family and cannot be given." Of course Zhou Man would not ask people for the secret recipe, it is something that a person stands up for, and nodded when he heard the words, "We will discuss medical skills later. This time I went to see this time, and I also saw several rare diseases, some were cured, and some were cured. Not good, I have written the case." Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 3526. When they came back, they were busy with this, and they all sorted out the things they had on hand. Let's not talk about Zhou Man. Not only has to compile medical books and organize the new species recorded and collected into books, but also occasionally goes out to see a doctor. Bai Erlang is even more devoted to creating his own storybook, mostly based on what he has seen and heard along the way, some of which cannot be written and must be hidden, and some are his own guesses and imaginations. Bai Shan and Yin Ruo have been very interested in maps and various minerals recently, and they are also compiling information and atlases along the way. It's just that these knowledge and pictures cannot be widely advertised, they can only be handed over to the emperor, and collected in the Chongqing Museum and the Imperial Academy. The emperor was very interested in this. I didn't expect that there are so many species on the scattered islands outside my Dajin. It's really unheard of and unseen. Bai Shan also said, it can be seen that the universe is vast, but our knowledge is still limited. The emperor nodded, and also had some expectations for the overseas world. I wonder when he can go out and see it? Before the emperor had time to ask this question, Bai Shan and the others quietly packed their bags and left after the new year. When the emperor heard about it, they had already left Yangzhou and were halfway to Qingzhou. Emperor, didn't you say to go to Yangzhou to escape the summer heat? The guards who reported back and forth knelt on the ground and dared not speak. The emperor was very angry. It's been less than a year since I returned to Beijing. The queen on the side corrected, exactly 1 year. The emperor patted the table. Is it very long? The queen poured tea for him and comforted him. Mingda is a grandmother now, how can you stop him if you want? There are many sisters, and you have never seen anyone stopped by you from going out. Your Majesty still accepts it, be tempered, otherwise those who know will say that you are worried about pampering my little sister, and those who don't know will think that you want to confine my little sister. The emperor rubbed his forehead and said, Mingda is the thing my father can't let go of before leaving. He has repeatedly told me to take good care of her. She has been in poor health since she was a child, how can I not worry? The empress slandered, the first emperor was most worried about Prince Gong, and he also told you to treat Prince Gong well. I haven't seen you caring about him in these years. But the queen didn't dare to say it, she smiled and said, isn't it caring to follow her wishes? When she came back from overseas, I saw that she was in good spirits. With her son-in-law by her side, she felt at ease. Isn't this the best thing? He said again, what's more, there is Zhou Man, the concubine feels that being by her side is the safest. The emperor didn't mutter any more, and endured it, but he didn't send anyone to chase him back. Bai Shan and the others found a boat to go to Tianfang by themselves. At first they were not familiar with Haimao, so they followed Zhou Hulang's suggestion and started from nearby. But after traveling at sea for a year, they should know and experience, and they all know and experience, and it will be much easier to find a boat to go to sea. Because of the convenience of their status. Several people are in high positions, so it is too easy to figure out the way. Ships going out to sea are all under the jurisdiction of the Haisai Yamen, and the Haisai Yamen is divided into north and south. Let alone the south, the Haisai Yamen in the north is mainly located in Qingzhou. Bai Shan was not only the left prime minister, but also started from Qingzhou. He has another favor here, not to mention Zhou Man's relationship. Over the years, there have been quite a few sea merchants rushing to Zhuman to send rare flowers, plants, insects, and animals, so they quickly found a fleet willing to take them to the sea to Tianfang. People who dare to go to such a far place in the sky and can build such a large caravan are naturally not ordinary people. The company's surname is Liu, of course, not Fanny Ang's Liu family, but Bingshu's Liu family. Speaking of which, this company has some relationship with Zhou Man. It is said that the person who bought Zhou Yin back then and gave the old Zhou family a bag of grain was the chief steward of their family. This is said to be naturally according to Zhou Zhoulang. Back then, old Zhou Tiu often inquired about Zhou Yin with his firm. Zhou Zhoulang heard his 3 elder brothers mention it when he was a child, and he remembered it in his heart. Later, he did overseas business here in Qingzhou, and cooperated somewhat with companies from all over the world. When he saw Liu's company, he remembered it in his heart. But he didn't ask, the other party didn't tell, and no one knew if it was true. But he had been in contact with Liu's steward, and Zhou Zhoulang felt that they probably knew it. Even though his uncle was only a small person back then, the big steward who bought him should have an impression. When his deeds were known all over the world, as long as the chief steward is still there, he won't be ignorant. However, Mrs. Lu probably wasn't sure whether they knew about it, and whether they had a good attitude or a bad attitude towards this matter, so he didn't dare to say it lightly. However, Lu's firm has given him a lot of advantages in dealing with Zhou Lang in the past few years. Naturally, Zhou Lang would not take advantage of others for nothing, otherwise he would take advantage of it here, and later Lu would probably get it back from Zhou Man and Bai Shan. So Zhou Lang will also give some convenience to Lu's firm. You are kind, I am kind, the relationship has been pretty good these years. When introducing the merchant ships to Zhou Man and the others, he deliberately cut off Lu's ship, because Lu's is too rich, and their family's ships run far and near, especially the distance. What he was afraid of was that they would board Lu Shi's boat and run far away. Who knew that 1 foot taller and 1 foot taller, Bai Shan directly attacked Haisai Yamen, and still found Lu Shi. Moreover, he bypassed Zhou Lang and directly negotiated with Lu about the conditions for going to sea. In fact, if it weren't for the huge cost of shipbuilding, Bai Shan and the others would have wanted to form a caravan. But let's forget it for now, it's too late now. If Zhou Lang has the heart, they can participate in it. Knowing the identities of Bai Shan and others, the Lu family attached great importance to this trip to sea, and directly sent their eldest son and the boat. This trip required drifting at sea for a long period of time. Bai Shan and the other 5 simply pooled up a sum of money and directly chartered a ship in the other party's fleet. Except for some crew members, they brought everyone on board. So not only live comfortably, but also more secure in terms of safety. As a precaution, Yin, or through his father, added 4 machine crossbows to the ship, directly moving the merchant ship closer to the warship, not to mention the ordinary crossbow arrows on the ship. Lu's eldest son came over to look around, and when he returned, he was envious, and said to his confidant, "If there are 2 more ships like this, we can walk sideways in the sea." Except for natural disasters, they are not afraid of man-made disasters. The confidant said, "Where is it easy? Not to mention the guards on the boat, even the 4 bows and crossbows are not what we can have." The eldest son pondered, if we can get them to invest in Haimao, with the connections of the Yin family and the Bai family, and the princess among them, all of these can be obtained at your fingertips. Over the years, there have been quite a few people who have intended to win over Zhou Lang, and many of them have bribed him with huge sums of money, but Zhou Lang never let go. The old Zhou family is getting richer and richer day by day, but the family property is still much thinner compared to these big companies and aristocratic families. It's not that Zhou Lang has never thought of building a ship by himself, but every time he makes a move, people keep coming to him, or hand him money, or give him artisan contacts. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 3527. There were even people who came to him directly with boats in their hands. As long as he said a word, those boats would be returned to the Zhou family, and the other party would not even take 10% of their generosity and give them away for nothing. Zhou Lang was very moved, but he also knew that there is no free meat pie in this world. The benefits are really good, but if you take the benefits of others, you must give back something equally important, or even more important. At that time, Bai Shan was the left chancellor of the Great Jin dynasty, Zhou Man was the order of the Imperial Medical Office and the director of the Imperial Hospital. Both of them were under 1 person and above 10,000 people. No matter how tempted Zhou Lang was, he did not dare to stretch out his hand. So he simply cut off his thoughts, preferring to work harder every year, renting people's boats to go to sea everywhere, and spending money to buy space, and decided not to mention shipbuilding anymore. Only then did the caring people stop slowly, no longer thinking about starting with Zhou Lang to catch up with Bai Shan and Zhou Man. Naturally, Lu's firm also had this idea, but seeing so many people falling into the sand, they also took a break and handled it cautiously. Another confidant said, "It is understandable for Master Joe to be cautious, but this time Mr. Bai personally came to take our boat, if we can directly cooperate with him. But now Mr. Bai is no longer the Prime Minister." The eldest son lowered his head and turned the wine glass in his hand. After a long while, he drank it all in one gulp, and put the wine glass on the table with a bang. "Even if he is no longer the Prime Minister, his words are better than us running for a month. Try it, if you can succeed, it will be much cheaper for the fleet to go to sea again in the future. Do you want to mention Joe Me and Joe Mew? Let's not do it. It's not a good thing that my father sold himself as a slave. I don't know if Mr. Joe minds it. Don't show favors, but make enemies instead. Master Joe doesn't look like that kind of person." The eldest son said, "Whether it looks like it or not, let's not mention this matter again. Bringing it up is just to repay your kindness." Only then did the confidants of the left and right respond, "Yes." The fleet set sail. This was the first time that Joe Man and the others had traveled on the sea for such a long time. Sometimes it took 10.5 months to see a piece of land. It doesn't matter whether there are people or people on the land, as long as the boat can dock, they all run to the land. When their feet were on the ground, they felt comfortable, but they still felt shaking. Joe Man put on his small back basket, took Western cakes and a few guards, and went to the depths of the island. The eldest son was only a step behind, and hurried to find Bai Shandao. "Bai Xianggong, there are savages on the island. Distress." Bai Shan knew that Joe Man would not be able to hide it from someone nearby, and she also brought cakes and guards, so she smiled and said, "It doesn't matter, she won't go deep, she just wants to pick some herbs and wild vegetables. Not to mention the medicinal materials, they prepared a lot when they boarded the ship, but they had already consumed them along the way. Although the crew members would grow bean sprouts on board, they were already tired of eating them. Not to mention them, but the crew now saw green leaves as if they saw anything. But Bai Shan still took a few guards to find Joe Man together. When Bai Erlang saw this, he wanted to go. Mingda also slowed down, and followed after seeing the situation. Yin Ru took a look, and brought Chang Shao and Suan to follow slowly. The eldest son. He wanted to stop Joe Man from taking risks, not want them to follow them. Joe Man didn't go very far, because she just walked a little further, and she came across a clump of black nightshade, each of which was very big, and it grew in a large area, all of which were green and tender. Seeing Xingxi, Joe Man hurried forward with Western cakes, waved his hand, and said to the guards, "Pinch the tender leaves, and cook them with eggs to clear away heat and detoxify." So when Bai Shan and the others found it, they were surrounded by a black nightshade, and each of them pinched a handful. Bai Shan stepped forward to take a look, then looked left and right, and recognized several kinds of wild vegetables in the vicinity. He was happy. There are quite a lot of wild vegetables on this island, much better than the island we visited last time. The island they landed on last time was mostly rocky, and they only found some fresh water on it and left. Joe Man said, "This island is not small, there should be quite a lot of things on it." They followed Joe Man and knew a lot of wild vegetables and medicinal materials, and they also searched around, but when they found them, the group couldn't help but look up at the sky, the tree that fell. Bai Erlang's neck was sore. "The fruit on it is so big, won't it kill people if it falls?" Joe Man pushed the tree, but he didn't push it, and was even more greedy. "I heard that the juice of the fruit is sweet." Bai Erlang, "Who told you that he has eaten it?" Joe Man didn't answer her, and was already looking for a place to climb. Bai Shan had already touched around and felt that he could not climb up, so he asked the guards, "Which one of you can climb up?" Guards. Although the master's request was unreliable, the guards still selected 2 guards who were better at climbing trees. After taking off their shoes, they climbed up with a dagger. The tree is very big, and they carefully cut only a small opening to make their feet less slippery. When they climbed to the top, they cut a fruit and threw it down, which happened to land not far from Yin. Zhou Man and Bai Erlang ran forward to hug, but Yin Ru had already stepped on him. He squatted down to look at it, and even knocked on it, curiously. How do you eat this? When the group returned, they not only carried a lot of wild vegetables, but also large fruits. Facing Lu Zongzi's curious gaze, Zhou Man said, "This is called suyu, and it's delicious." As the eldest son, Lu Zongzi has to strategize and rarely go to sea. He will know that there are savages on this island because the family has sent an experienced steward to follow him, but this fruit. He laughed and said, "This is the first time I've heard of such a fruit. Is this, really edible?" Bai Shandao, in Shanglan Fu, the suyu in leave suyu behind, benevolent and frequent refers to it. Lu Zongzi, although he also reads, he can't memorize Shanglan Fu. Since the bosses say so, it is true. As the number one doctor in the world, Zhou Man should not admit his mistake. Zhou Man happily chopped off a lot of fruit shells, dug a small hole, and poured out the juice inside. Smelling a fragrance, she cautiously stretched out the tip of her tongue and tasted it. Bai Shan saw how funny it was, and thought she was so confident when she saw what she said so firmly. Zhou Man drew back the tip of his tongue, savored it carefully, his eyes lit up slightly, and hurriedly said to the others, "It's delicious." Upon hearing this, several people quickly asked the guards to split the fruit for them and pour out the juice to taste. After drinking the water, Bai Shan squinted his eyes curiously and looked in. Seeing that it was white inside, he couldn't help but pick a piece with his fingers and put it in his mouth to taste. He raised his eyebrows slightly. "This is fruit pulp." Although suyu is mentioned in Shanglan Fu, there is no description of how suyu eats, and Bai Shan is rarely described in detail in books. It seems that their knowledge is too shallow and they haven't read enough books. He turned his head and said to Bai Erlang, "This can be written more, so that people who have never been out at sea can see and see." What Mingda thought was, should I bring some to Brother Huang on the return journey? You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 3528. Zhou Man replied to Bai Shan, "It's fruit pulp, it can be eaten. I heard that it can be stewed with meat. It would be great if there is chicken." "There are no chickens, but fish." Yin Yu pointed to the beach and said, "They caught fish." Zhou Man turned his head to look, eager to try it? "Maybe you can just stew the fish with the shell." They wanted to eat it, so they encouraged Lu Zongzi. "There are still some in it, but they are all clump after clump. As long as you can climb a tree, you can get more than a dozen. Zongzi can also take someone to try it." He also generously gave him a suyu to taste first. Lu Zongzi thanked him, thought about it, and asked someone to pick it. A group of people rested on the island, and Bai Shan intentionally contacted the savages on the island, and made deals with them with items, and was regarded as a guest of honor and took him around the island. Zhou Man dug a lot of wild vegetables and medicinal materials. Of course, in the eyes of Lu Zongzi and others, what Zhou Man dug was not only wild vegetables and medicinal materials, but also a lot of good things on this island. Keek was very happy, and Zhou Man was also very happy. Lu Zongzi, who was going to avoid the savages, saw Bai Shan and his party looking for the savages, first fought with them, almost shot them through with an arrow, then used a few steamed buns to gather them together, and took them directly. And traded with men for the linen and cotton they brought. Lu Zongzi slowly let go of his heart, and couldn't help but said to the left and right, as expected of a person who has been a prime minister, "Do you think I can dance in front of him with my small thoughts?" The left and right confidants stopped talking. In the evening, Lu Zongzi went up to find Bai Shan on purpose, and talked directly. Bai Shan slightly raised his eyebrows, and after sending Lu Zongzi away, he called his partners. At first, we planned to squeeze out money to build 2 ships after we went back, and we would build a fleet by ourselves, but when a ready-made ship came, Lu's company invited us to become a shareholder. Yin, he said, the Lu family is neither short of money nor lack of people. What are they planning? Picture the crossbow weapon on our ship. Mingda, it's okay to have 1 or 2 ships like this. If it's bigger, won't it cause trouble for the court? Bai Shan smiled and said, so I didn't agree directly, but what if the royal family also invests in the shares? Mingda was taken aback. Bai Shandao, nowadays, sea trade is flourishing. As long as the ship does not capsize when going out to sea, there are very few people who lose money. Your Majesty can do this business. Zhou Man, you are not afraid of the imperial censor's words and pens for tying the emperor to fight for the interests of the people. Bai Shan didn't care. I don't tick. People in the royal family also participated in the maritime trade, not to mention the princes and princesses of the late emperor, among the current princes, whose hands are not more or less involved in it. That is, the emperor and empress themselves did not intervene in person. Mingda's heart moved. Now that the princes have grown up, although Yingnu's position as prince is very stable, disputes are inevitable, and sea trade is now one of the most profitable ways. Yingnu is not easy to intervene too much. If the emperor's brother directly took over, which could make the other princes calm down. Mingda nodded, I agree. Bai Er naturally listened to Mingda. Yin Li has already retired, and Yin or his heart moved, maybe I can be your Majesty's private army. Bai Shan nodded approvingly, I also have the same intention. There are a lot of good things overseas. It is not easy for the imperial court to take action, and it is easy to raise ambitions if it is handed over to private individuals. It is not good for the imperial court if it is powerful. If the emperor's private army, then there are too many things that can be done. Zhou Man turned around and left. I'll take some people to pick some suyu. I promised Alu, they will pick the fruit for us, and I will teach them how to deal with medicinal materials and some sick wounds. Alu is the savage they met in the past 2 days. They can't understand each other, but they can make gestures. Body language is very mysterious. Anyway, they all feel that they understand each other's meaning. Zhou Man decided to lay a friendly foundation for them here first, so that they can come and go frequently and communicate with each other in the future. In the end, they harvested a lot of suyu and boarded the boat. Not to mention, when they were on the boat, they stewed fish and suyu pulp together. It had a special flavor, and it was much better than eating fish dry. The group experienced wind and rain, sickness, and even encountered pirates, but finally arrived in Tianfang safely. Tianfang, a foreign land completely different from Dajin, Zhou Man, and Mingda just set foot on this land. They were attracted by the same color blue of sea and sky, and the bright colors in the city. Zhou Man could not help but exhale, it's so beautiful. Mingda nodded approvingly. He stayed at sea for too long, and Bai Shan was a little embarrassed. He leaned slightly on Zhou Man, looked up at this foreign land different from Dajin, and said with a slight smile, let's go into the city and have a look. The people here welcome the merchant ships from the east very much. As soon as their fleet landed, they were surrounded by people. Even if Bai Shan and the others did not bring any goods, they were still surrounded by people. Some people waved gold beads and precious stones to exchange silk and satin cloth from the east with them. It took a lot of effort for Bai Shan and the others to break out, but Lu Zongzi had already been submerged in the crowd. Bai Shan and the others let out a sigh of relief, turned their heads and glanced sympathetically at the direction where Lu Zongzi was, then patted their sleeves and left. Bai Shan and the others don't like to reveal their identities when they go out. Except for Lu Zongzi and a few stewards in the fleet, no one knows their origins, but they can be guessed as nobles. Mingda has no intention of acting in the name of Princess Dajin, otherwise it would be too troublesome. De Jin is now well known. If she reveals her identity, she can get a lot of advantages and benefits, but there are also a lot of things to give up. Not to mention freedom, as the princess of the Shang Kingdom, when she goes to a country, she is not allowed to give national gifts. Therefore, it is better to remain anonymous, and it is not too late to use the identity of the royal family when there is no other choice. But that's it. After a few years, as they visited more and more places, and traveled between Dajin and overseas more frequently, rumors began to spread outside that there was a royal princess living overseas in that mysterious country in the east. Travel. If you can catch up with this oriental princess, you might be able to reach that mysterious country through her. I heard that there are silk and gold everywhere, everyone is very rich, and they live a life like heaven. After the emperor understood that they had returned from Tianfang safely and brought him back a letter of advice on the royal family's sea trade, he stopped stopping them from running out. Forget it, even Tianfang has gone, where else can he stop them from going? The royal family took a stake in the sea trade, and cooperated with the Lu family to build a fleet, achieving maritime hegemony, and even pirates stayed away. Since then, even if the imperial power of the Jin dynasty was ups and downs on the mainland, this private army at sea has always existed, and it has been directly dominating for 300 years. 300 years later, even if the great Jin dynasty is not as good as before, it will still be number one in the world, and no country can surpass it in terms of economy, culture, and maritime trade. In later generations, Bai Shan and the other five were also well known in the history of navigation, especially the books written by Bai Erlang on sea navigation, which became an important reference for studying the history of navigation in Daxia. And their great Xia was able to be at the forefront of world navigation for more than 1,000 years, and the nautical charts left by Bai Shan and Yin played an important role. This is an era of rich colors, an era of talents, and an era in the history of Great Xia, except for the spring and autumn and warring states periods, where many outstanding talents can appear for more than a century. In this era, Daxia's culture, economy, and technology are all developing rapidly, as if a god is pushing it forward, and it doesn't stop for a long time. Many historians later researched and found that these fields are more or less related to the classics left by Zhou Man, Bai Shan, and others. Many manuscripts have been lost in the torrent of history and are no longer available for research, but we know from some records left by later generations that the inheritance of some skills first came from the manuscripts of Bai Shan, Zhou Man, and Bai Chenjian. Because of this, the four of them, including Princess Mingda, were all called the most outstanding talents of that era. Their knowledge was so rich that it was difficult for many people to match. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 3529. Tang He sneaked out of the Ministry of Punishment again, and the officials of the Ministry of Punishment were not surprised, they turned a blind eye and pretended not to see it. Anyway, since the capital is full, there must be no human trafficker who dares to photograph him, so just sneak out if you sneak out. Tang He not only slipped away, he also took his father's horse by the hand, and rode the horse to the academy not far from the imperial city. Throw the horse to the gatekeeper and rush in. The concierge subconsciously took the rein, and he didn't react until he caught it. He hurriedly reached out to stop Tang He. Mr. Tang Xiaolang, aren't you punished by your husband to stay at home and think about your mistakes? Tang He dodged and ran to the door. I've already thought about it, my father asked me to come to school. The concierge didn't know whether to believe it or not, but he didn't stop him anyway. Tang He ran directly to the classroom, but didn't go through the main entrance. Instead, he hid at the window, poked his head out quietly to look in, and saw that the teacher was studying while shaking his head, so he threw a small stone to the classmate by the window, puff 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 motioned inward. The classmate by the window saw him, squinted at him, then shook his head with the teacher, tore a piece of paper, rolled it into a ball, and threw it at Yang Heshu who was sitting in front while the teacher was not paying attention. It is rare to have an above-board reason to smash Yang Heshu, so naturally this opportunity cannot be missed. Yang Heshu was hit on the head by the ball of paper, and he frowned slightly, knowing that it was Tang He who came without turning his head. After the teacher led them to finish reading a text, Yang Heshu got up and saluted, "Sir, the students want to change their clothes?" The gentleman nodded kindly, and said gently, "Go." Yang Heshu turned and left. The students in the classroom watched Yang and Shu leave, feeling resentful in their hearts. Why should Yang and Shu just go to change clothes, and they have to hold back when they get up to ask for a change? Yang Heshu walked out of the classroom and went directly to Milin. Before reaching the place, Tang He jumped out from behind a rockery. "Why are you so slow?" Yang Heshu looked him up and down, and asked, "Is your father not willing to punish you?" Tang He, "My father knows it's not my fault, so naturally he won't punish me." Yang Heshu, "Sir, ask your father to teach you well." "That's because my father was sensible. He knew not to wrong me, but also knew not to embarrass my husband, so he only called me home for 2 days. It's only been 2 days, isn't your appearance now embarrassing, Uncle Shi?" "No embarrassment, no embarrassment, I will send a pot of soju to my husband later." Yang Heshu ignored him and asked directly, "What do you want from me?" Tang He sighed, "My father said that I was too naughty, and he wanted me to enter the Imperial Academy in advance. Although you are younger than me, Lord Yang is only your son. Do you want to let Lord Yang send you to Kuazixu? We are still classmates." Yang He wrote calmly and said, "I want to take the test by myself." "How troublesome, it may not be possible to enter Kuazixu. How good is it for us to be kind directly?" Yang Heshu, "I'm not old enough. The minimum age requirement for Inian is 14 years old, because the Jin dynasty was established at the beginning, and the war has been going on for the past few years, and the Imperial College has just reopened for a few years, so there are a lot of students accumulated in the past. People from aristocratic families, honorable ones, and officials who have just made their way with the real dragon, no matter how big or small the children are, all have to be stuffed into the Imperial College." The Kuazijian was overcrowded, and Kong Jiju, who had just taken over the Kuazijian, was furious, so he directly issued a new rule that the maximum age of Inian students should not exceed 20, and the minimum age should not be less than 14. This prevents Kuazijian from becoming a shelter for the elderly and a kindergarten teaching center. It is not known how many years this regulation will exist. Tang He scratched his head and asked, "Then how sure are you?" Yang Heshu said calmly, 70 to 80%. "Since you said 70% to 80% chance, then there is a 90% chance, so it's settled, we will still be at the same table when we enter Kuazixu." Yang Heshu, "I only agreed that you would go to Kuazixu together, but I didn't promise you to stay at the same table." "Oh, aren't they all the same? I don't dislike you for talking less, so don't dislike me for talking too much." So Tang He went back and waited for Inian's list with peace of mind. Yang Heshu really went to take the Kuazixu exam, and he really got in, becoming the youngest student in the Kuazijian. As the only student who was admitted to Kuazixu this year with his real talents, Kong Jiju especially liked him. "I like to be called Yang Heshu when I have something to do, and I like to be called Yang Heshu when I have nothing to do." Seeing this, Yang Haoyi took the characters for Yang Heshu early, otherwise the right to get the characters might be taken away by Kong Jiju, who likes to give characters to students. Seeing that Yang Heshu, who was younger than him, both had calligraphy, Tang He pestered his father to get one for him when he got home. Tang Shilang didn't even think about it and said, "I've already taken it for you, and I'll give it to you when you get the crown. That's still many years away, and I want it now." Tang Shilang couldn't resist him, so he could only tell him, "Your character is Hai He." Tang Shilang asked Chang Sui to bring the box that had been kept in his house, and opened it to him. Inside was a blue jade crown and a blue jade hairpin, I prepared this for you early in the morning. Originally I will give it to you when you get the crown. Tang He got the jade crown and jade hairpin, and went looking for Yang Heshu with joyful hands. Since your father picked up the characters for you, did he prepare the jade crown and jade hairpin for you? Yang Heshu glanced at his, asked Wan Tian to fetch a box, and opened it for him to see. Inside is a white jade crown and white jade hairpin, and the quality of the jade is no worse than that of Tang He's sapphire. Tang He clicked his tongue and said, "It's so beautiful, it seems that Yang Haoyi also bleeds a lot." Yang Heshu closed the box and handed it to Wan Tian. "We can't put it on yet." Said it was too young. But Tang He didn't care. The next day he put on the jade hairpin and went to the Imperial College for a walk. It was a pity that Yang Heshu was standing next to him. Human gaze. Tang Shilang knew that his son had done something stupid, so he taught him, "Next time you wear good clothes and go out, you must avoid Yang Heshu, otherwise, if he is around, who will look at you?" With Yang Heshu's face and temperament, even if he was wearing a torn sack, he was more attractive than Tang He. Tang He oscillated back and forth between the center of the light and his friend, and finally chose his friend. For this reason, he went to Yang Heshu to ask for credit, and sighed, "For the sake of our friendship, I have given up a lot." Yang Heshu held back his laughter, and said gently, "Even if you don't give up, we are similar in age and family background. Wherever you appear, there will always be me, and you can't be the center. Tang He, you really deserve to be beaten, I want to beat you." Yang Heshu couldn't beat him, so he decided not to continue this topic. Tang He said, "Tomorrow we will take a rest, let's pick lotus pods." "Where to pick it?" "There is a big lake next door to my house. I heard that there are many lotus pods planted in it. Let's pick some." Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 3530. Yang Heshu, that's the Wang family's house in Taiyuan, it's a private house. Oh, my family lives next door to his house. There is only one servant left in his house, and the masters are all in their hometown. It's a waste to leave the lotus pods. Why don't I clean them up for them?" Yang Heshu had no choice but to remind, "Your father is the servant of the Ministry of Punishments. He broke into private houses and was a thief. Do you want to stay in the Ministry of Punishments for a few days?" Tang He was young and energetic, and said indifferently, "I will leave a dime when the time comes, and just treat it as buying with them." Yang Heshu really couldn't understand his interest. "You have the money to buy it on the street, why do you need to be a thief? You don't understand, can the one you bought compare to the one you picked yourself? Can the one you picked compare to the one you picked secretly?" Tang He said, "Many crimes in this world stem from the word desire. You know. Since I know it, I naturally have to understand it well. Once I know the constraints, I won't do it again in the future." Yang Heshu understood, nodded, and said, "So you owe a beating." Yang Heshu agreed, even if it was to make Tang He get beaten up, he would go there, and when he reached the back wall of the palace, he asked, "If no one finds out, should I yell so that people can find you? Is it wrong to let you know the bad consequences of your desire?" "Tang He, you really plan to call someone, can't you just listen to me as soon as I say it?" Yang Heshu shook his head solemnly, "No." But he didn't really want to call someone. Seeing Tang He climbed onto the wall and didn't move for a long time, he found a stick and patted his butt. "Why don't you go in?" Tang He was stiff all over. He raised his hand and the girl who was looking at her not far from the fence gave a stiff smile. "I said that I misidentified the fence at home, do you believe me, little lady?" Miss Wang raised her eyebrows and asked, "Did you misunderstand the wall of my Wang's house at the other end of the Tang's house?" Tang He, mistake, misstep, he shouldn't have climbed this way from the top of the wall of his house, he should have gone into the alley, but the wall at the other end of the alley is far away from the lake in the backyard. Miss Wang stared at his expression, and asked, Are you the gentleman of Tang Shilang's family next door? No, Tang, he denied without thinking, I'm here as a guest of the Tang family. My surname is Yang, and my name is Changbo. Yang Heshu. He raised the wooden stick in his hand and gave Tang He's buttocks hard. Tang He screamed, but he didn't change his words. Yang Heshu didn't correct him either. But Miss Wang could tell that there must be someone on the other side of the fence, maybe it was Yang Changbo. She suppressed her laugh and asked, then Yang Langjun, tell the truth, why are you climbing the fence of my house? Tang He pointed to the lake not far away and said, do you believe me when I say I'm here to hide from the cold? Miss Wang looked back, calmly took out a dime of silver from the purse at her waist, and said with a smile, I think you are here to steal the lotus pods. Before Tang He could argue, she threw the silver horn viciously towards his forehead. You little thief, how dare you lie to others by climbing a wall? Tang He, who was not bad at martial arts, didn't know why he didn't dodge. He was hit on the forehead by Yin Jiao, and he fell off the wall with an ouch. Yang Heshu and Wan Tianmingli supported Tang He, who had fallen, and hurriedly asked, are you okay? Tang He covered his head with one hand, opened his hand to look. He was still holding a dime of silver in his hand, his forehead was red and swollen. He touched it, hissed, and couldn't help shouting, you are so rude, I will climb a wall, this wall is not yours alone, why beat me? Miss Wang raised her voice and said, I have already lost money for beating you, so you can take the dime to get medicine, Yang Langjun. Wan Tian couldn't help stomping his feet, Master Tang, aren't you ruining my young master's reputation? What's bad, who knows that your young master's name is Changbo now? When she finds out, will she know that she has admitted the wrong person? Tang He lowered his voice, covered his head and pulled Yang Heshu and ran away. Go, my dad, you know I'm going to break my leg climbing the wall. Yang Heshu didn't care that he used his name to do things, but he didn't want to run away, but broke away from his hand and walked slowly. Uncle, she went out to drink today, and he won't come back until evening, you can think about it carefully, thinking about where to hide. Tang He had a headache, and complained to Mingli, I live in the Imperial College and don't know that there is someone living next door, so why don't you know at home? Mingli, Master, I just came back from the farm last night. You didn't ask me to go to the countryside to find crabs. You also said that you would invite young Master Yang to have a crab feast. Yang Heshu, the crabs are all bones now, what kind of crab feast are you eating? That's why I have to search carefully, ouch, I can't lift my forehead, I can't lift it, Changbo, I have a terrible headache, or you can answer this crime for me, I really can't think of it. Where did you go to hide? Yang Heshu sighed, I don't mind admitting it for you, but can Uncle Shi believe it? After thinking about it, Tang He felt that his father couldn't believe it, so he burst into tears sincerely, then what should I do? I really don't want to be beaten. Yang Heshu said, it's great, you've got your wish now, and you really know the consequences of being unable to control your desire. Tang He cried loudly. That's what he said, but Yang Heshu still brought Tang He back to Yang's house to let him avoid the storm. But to their surprise, the offended Wang family did not come to attack, so that Tang Shilang never knew that his son had climbed the wall of the Wang family, and he really thought his son was looking for Yang Heshu to play, so he temporarily stayed in the Yang family. Yang Heshu has never reached the top, his writing is only circulated among a few teachers, Tang He is the only one among friends who knows, so Miss Wang doesn't know who Yang Changbo is. So she directly asked the head of the royal family, Father, who in Beijing has a son named Yang Changbo who is also on good terms with the Tang family. Yang Changbo, Patriarch Wang frowned and thought for a while before saying, I heard that the Yang family chose the characters for the eldest son, but they are still young and haven't made it public, but if you want to say that you have a good relationship with the Tang family, it's just Yang Heshu. He smiled and asked, why, you also heard the name of the eldest son of the Yang family. Miss Wang frowned, he was definitely not Yang Heshu, But Tang He, why did he come to climb the fence of her house? Have you climbed before? She thought it was the children who came to the Tang's house to climb up without manners. When they met again, Lady Wang and Tang He looked at each other, her eyes shifted from Tang He to Yang Heshu next to her, and she raised her eyebrows. Is this the beautiful Yang Heshu who moved the capital? It's really nice. However, she quickly turned her gaze back to Tang He, raised her eyebrows and said, "Your gentleman is well, should I call you Mr. Tang, or Mr. Yang?" Tang He, I regret it so much, I shouldn't have used Yang Heshu as a shield back then. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 3531. Yang and Shu didn't care about the lawsuit between them, but stood aside and watched with great interest. Later Mrs. Tang was always secretly jealous of Yang and Shu, because no matter where Tang He appeared at that time, Yang and Shu always followed, and they were inseparable. Although Tang He has many friends, Yang Heshu must be the place where he can come and go freely in and out of Tang's house, and he can be found anytime and anywhere. The two of them are so close. So not only men will be jealous of Yang Heshu, but women will also be jealous. Of course, women are more jealous of Tang He. But in order to be able to get closer to the indifferent Yang Heshu, the little ladies still gave Tang He a lot of face. In order for Tang He to deliver letters and things for them, they did not hesitate to curry favor with Tang He. Of course, they didn't know at the time that most of these things ended up in Tang He's stomach, Tang He's warehouse. Because Yang Heshu often asked Tang He to return it after a glance. Tang He returned it at first, but every time he returned it, the girl cried miserably, which made him, the deliverer, a heartless man. Later, he became self-taught, and replied to all the things he received, not necessarily books and books. If he didn't want them, I had no choice but to throw them away, so don't be sad when the time comes. All the ladies who asked him to deliver things were full of confidence, and said repeatedly, "I won't be sad, you just send it, if he doesn't accept it, then it will be lost." So Tang He gave it to Yang Heshu in front of them, and after Yang Heshu refused, he threw it into his own warehouse. So soon after Mrs. Tang got married, she tidied up the Tang family's warehouse, and found out a warehouse of love letters and jade pendants, all of which were gifts from the little girls, but none of them belonged to Tang He. They all belonged to Yang Heshu. Mrs. Tang. So I couldn't help being jealous of Yang and Shu. Another point is that Tang He almost gave up his career and life because of Yang Heshu. Yang Heshu's personality looks cold, but he is very gentle. These are Tang He's original words, and they are also the truth before he was 15 years old. How bad can Yang Heshu's character be when he was young and well-clothed and the eldest son of the family? But because he was good-looking since he was a child, he didn't like people to stare at him all the time, so he liked to keep a cold face. Tang He knew him well, so he naturally knew that this was just his appearance. He knew that he had a soft heart and a gentle personality, otherwise he would not have told him that the world's granaries would be full and there would be no more famine. Later Tang He left the capital and followed his father to tour the world. Within 2 years, he heard that the eldest son of the Yang family had a tyrannical personality, was unworthy of virtue, had raped and murdered women from a good family, and had been sent to a big prison. Tang He was terrified, and immediately begged his father to return to Beijing, but Tang Shilang was on patrol by order, and he could not return to Beijing without an order. Tang He had no choice but to run back to the capital by himself. He was ready to meet Yang Heshu Kuxixi in prison. Who knew that Yang Heshu was not put in the prison of the Ministry of Punishment, but was placed under house arrest in the imperial prison. Tang He. He approached Yang Heshu's cell slowly, knocked on the window, and rushed inside with two puchi puchi. Yang Heshu, who had been sitting blankly with a cold face, came to life in an instant. He got up suddenly and opened the window. He saw Tang He with flying hair and blue eyes. His eyes were a little wet. "Where did you come back from?" Seeing that he was still fair and clean, Tang He couldn't help but clicked his tongue twice, and asked, "There is such a thing as a good-looking face? If you commit a murder case, you don't have to be sent to the Ministry of Criminal Justice and Dali Temple." Yang Hesha gave a hum and said, "Kong Jiju said, I look like this, it's not certain who will be strong on whom." Tang He climbed in from the window, completely ignoring the warden who was staring at them not far away. "That's true, so how could you be convicted of such a crime? Even I heard about it in other places." Yang Hesha poured him a cup of tea, only cold ones. Tang He drank it down without hesitation. He said, "Quickly say, although Kong Jiju turned a blind eye to the wine, we can't go too far." Yang Hesha said, "When I woke up, there was blood all around me. There was a woman lying not far from me. I was holding a blood-stained dagger in my hand. I still had wounds from the dagger on my hand." "What?" Yang Hesha glanced at him and said, "There was a fight at the scene, things fell to the ground, and the table fell upside down. It wasn't an ordinary woman who died, but a daughter of Wupen Tongju, surnamed Han, who just came from another place with her father. Beijing report, she is very good looking, she has been famous since she came to Beijing, many people admire her, and she is at the right age, so many people came to propose marriage." Tang He imagined a lot of love and hatred in an instant. Could it be that others like her, but she also likes you, so she loves but can't kill her and put the blame on you? Who is this person? Isn't he too cruel? Yang Hesha pursed his lips. Tang He hurriedly asked, "Where did the crime happen? How did you get together?" "The outing organized by the school happened to meet a group of officials and family members who were also outing on the mountain. It rained, and we all stayed in the temple." Yang Hesha paused and said, "I share a room with Lu Yu." Lu Yu is another friend recognized by Yang Hesha. He is also a student of the Imperial Academy and a side branch of the Lu family. Like Yang Hesha, he was also admitted to the Imperial Academy, but he was in Taixio at the beginning, and was referred to the Imperial Academy 2 years ago because of his excellent grades. Tang He took a long vacation to go on tour with his father, and Yang Hesha had no friends around, so Lu Yu sat next to him, and the two became acquainted after a while. Yang and Shu like each other very much, and feel that he is considerate and knowledgeable. They have similar interests and hobbies, and they get along very well, so after the initial strange period, they have been inseparable during this period. But Yang Heshu looked up at Tang He, expressing his doubts about Lu Yu for the first time. "Because it's raining, you know, I don't like rainy days, so I didn't go out." Lu Yu went out to reunite with classmates. "I was alone in the room in the middle of reading. His book boy came and brought me a cup of tea. After I drank it, I felt sleepy and fell asleep." "Where's Wan Tian?" "He went to the kitchen to pick up food boxes." Tang He directly asked the key point, "What is his confession?" Yang Hesha said flatly, "He said that he never asked the book boy to bring me tea. His book boy has been accompanying him all the time, and his classmates have also testified that they have been listening to Yuxuan to discuss essays." "Did you leave in the middle?" Yang Heshu, they said no. Tang He frowned, and after asking about the day's events in detail, he ran out to investigate. Relying on his affection for growing up in the Ministry of Criminal Justice and Tang Shilang's face, Tang He finally got access to the case file and the people who were present at the time. After the investigation, he couldn't help but ran to the Imperial College to complain to Yang Heshu. "There are too many people, not only the students in the middle school, but also the female relatives, as well as the scholars who happened to go up the mountain that day, and the children of the rich and powerful. There is a screen in the room. Who will pay attention to whether a person is in the room all the time?" Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 3532. I asked several people, and the testimonies were completely different. Some said that Lu Yu had never left, some said that he had left for a while, and some said that he had never seen Lu Yu in Tingyuxuan. How can such testimony be used? He asked, you be honest, besides this, why do you doubt him? Yang Heshu frowned and thought for a while. I smelled a fragrance after waking up. I always felt that I had smelled that fragrance on him before, and even though it was noisy when they broke in, he was the only one I recognized. Friend, I looked at him subconsciously, but he didn't believe me, but followed others to believe that I was the murderer. Upon hearing this, Tang He immediately got out of the window again, and said, you wait for me, you will be able to go out soon. Seeing him coming again, Kong Jiju was so angry that his beard flew up. Tang's Hai He, next time you climb the window, I will break your leg. Tang He ran away. Kong Jiju didn't believe that Yang Heshu would kill people, and he still killed people for such ridiculous reasons. Among all the students he taught, Yang Heshu was the best. He likes him more than the former prince. Like Tang He, even if he doesn't know the truth, he still believes in his character. Yang Heshu is definitely not the murderer. That's why he locked people in the Kuazijian, not allowing the Ministry of Punishments and Dali Temple to arrest people from him. As long as Yang Heshu doesn't leave the Kuazijian, there is no imperial decree, the Ministry of Punishment and Dali Temple can't get anyone. And the emperor? The emperor didn't quite believe that Yang Heshu would do such a thing, and with concubine Yang Gaifei in the harem begging for mercy, he turned a blind eye. The sacrificial wine handed over Yang Heshu. This year, Yang Heshu has tasted the warmth and coldness of human relationships. He has gained a lot of trust and warmth, and he has also seen Mingj protect his life and frame him. Only then did he know that what he thought was good before was not really good, and what he thought was bad before was really bad. Yang Heshu, who was imprisoned in the Kuazijian, thought a lot when Tang He finally found out the truth with his stubbornness and almost died under the assassination. Yang Heshu saw through a lot. Yang Heshu was cleared of his grievances. When he walked out of the Imperial College, he lost a lot of weight and looked haggard. It seemed that the ladies in the capital who came to visit him were crying. Since then, no one dared to bring up the matter of Yang Heshu being wronged, and few people knew that the young man who was exiled for 3,000 miles was once Yang Heshu's second best friend. He thought they were like-minded and had similar personalities, but it turned out that they were all fake. This is what he told Yang Heshu, if you weren't the eldest son of the Yang family, do you think you would be able to attract attention? Even if you were born with such a face, that would be a disaster, not a blessing. He said, I really want to be friends with you for the rest of my life. I don't mind sharing the same interests with you all the time. It's a pity that I made a wrong step. At that time, I thought that only you could replace me. The other party smiled and said, actually, I want to see if you are involved in such a case, will you still be favored by thousands of people? I killed her by accident. In fact, there are many ways to deal with it. Go to the mountains, or set a fire. But I just thought of you obsessively, and I just wanted to see if you would be spurned by everyone. Everyone shouted and beat you. How about it? You are not having a good time these days, right? Except for those shallow women, how many people are there? People expect you to die like this, he said. Your family and clan are among them. The eldest son of the Yang family is too outstanding, which is not a good thing for most people in this world. His eyes fell on Tang He next to him, and he smiled and said, Tang's Hai He, you will regret it in the future. With Yang Heshu in Dajin, it will be difficult for you to hide your light in the future. He cried, since Sheng Liang, he Shenjiao. Tang He turned his head to look at Yang Heshu. Is he crazy? How dare he compare himself to Zhou Yu? Tang He simply shivered, raised his chin and said, you are stupid, can't I be a crouching dragon and a phoenix chick with him? He is a crouching dragon, and I am a phoenix chick. Isn't this complimentary? It's a pity that Tang He didn't make Crouching Dragon and Phoenix Cub with Yang Heshu in the end, because later generations compared Bai Shan and Yang Heshu and called them Crouching Dragon and Phoenix Cub. But at this moment Tang He didn't know that Bai Shan was still struggling in Longzhou at this moment. Lu Yu did not go to the place of exile, he committed suicide on the way. The matter seems to be settled here, but Yang Heshu can always dream of the blood all over his body when he wakes up, and he always feels that his body is not clean. He also felt that everyone who approached him seemed to have other purposes. Tang He's investigation tore away many things that seemed peaceful on the surface, allowing Yang Heshu to see the maliciousness creeping under the usual normal skin. Whenever Yang Heshu thinks about it, he feels disgusted. Since then, whenever he meets new people, he can't help but speculate about them with the worst intentions. Until he was sent to Lujian County. There, few people know his identity, and he doesn't have to be too vigilant when facing ordinary farmers. He doesn't think that people covered in silk and satin are any cleaner than farmers with dirty clothes in the field. I even feel that people who work in the fields are cleaner. It was an accident to get acquainted with Zhou Man and the 3 children, but Yang Heshu felt that it was inevitable. As long as he is the magistrate of Lujian County, he will always meet these 3 little guys. The difference between them is less than 10 years, but they are so romantic, and he is such a villain. As the relationship deepened, he even became suspicious of the 3 children, so he couldn't help but send someone to investigate them. They were innocent, and had nothing to do with his life. Only then did Yang Heshu relax, seeing that they didn't care about his family background, and even his appearance didn't attract their attention that much, so he couldn't help but hang out with them more. Tang He often laughed at him because of this in his letters. You often say that your heart becomes old and bad after things happen, but I think you are still a pure child. Otherwise, why would you want to be friends with a group of real children? Do you dare take a look up and find some big friends to make friends with? Tang He felt that Yang Heshu was sick and could be cured, so he had been persistently trying to introduce him to friends for many years. It's a pity that Yang and Shu didn't believe any of them, and they didn't even trust their own father, because there were people who contributed to the incident in the family and at home, and Yang Haoi didn't completely take his side to deal with the follow-up. Although the 3 new friends they made were very young and Tang He complained a lot, he was still very happy that Yang and Shu could make friends, so when Zhou Man and the others arrived in Yazhu City, Tang He took care of them. If Yang Heshu, who is suffering from hysteria and paranoia, agrees with them, then they are good people. This good man is a good man in the true sense. Tang He likes making friends with good people the most.